Yeah. I heard the story, man, like, goes like this.
My father has a lot of sides, and you hear about the fights. You don't hear about family that much and what that meant to him.
And I remember the moment I fell in love with him when he was, make me cry.
What's your dad's name?
Muhammad Ali.
So Gene Kilroy, thank you so much for joining us here from TYT Sports. First of all, I mean, just as probably the vaguest question as anyone can ask you, just what was it like working with Muhammad Ali all your life?
I consider myself one of the luckiest guys in the whole world, just being accepted by him, by him allowing me to be his friend and him being my friend.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people always try to get through to get close to the greatest, but he accepted me for what I was. I accepted him for what he was. There was we just spoke the truth to each other, and that was was a great connection for each other.
Yeah, and there was part of the movie that really touched me. It was a scene where you went into the MGM Grand, and you said, I think you said when you were up to speak, I'm just waiting on my mother to come and shake me and wake me up because this is a dream.
My life has been a dream.
Yeah,
you know, and it is. You know, I can. You know, people would come around and say would have to go home. I could stay there. Yeah. We were like two kids riding down the highway, and believe it or not, like Muhammad was just like a humble, sensitive guy, you know.
Absolutely.
I got to know the real Muhammad Ali, not that I'm the greater. I used to tell him when he was nice, he was like his mother, Mama Bird. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Gene. When he got laid loud, I said, that's Cassius in you. But he had a daughter, May. Yeah. He said what her birth was more important to him than winning the title belts.
Yeah.
And then he said he was blessed to have his in-laws raise his children.
Yeah.
What would it be if he was the greatest man on planet Earth, or known all over, and one of his children went bad? He loved children, and when we travel places, everyone would bring their kids, he'd hug them, kiss them. I bet there are more pictures around of people when they were little babies hugging Ali and kissing them.
Yeah.
I said, why do you do that? He said, because my kids can't be here. I wish mine was here. So that's a sensitive guy, you know, the real Muhammad that I knew.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I said to Claire when I was talking about her to the movies, that it felt as if this was an inside perspective to his life, and all the way from the glamour and the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. This was more like the integrated side of him that we didn't get to see as much, and it was fantastic.
This was looking not at the watch, but inside the watch.
Yes.
And Clare Lewins did a great job with this.
Yeah.
I pray to God that she wins the Academy Award and goes on to great things.
Yeah.
She did such a great job. And it was a sacrifice to suffer for her.
Yeah.
She had to break out her piggy bank to start and work on her credit cards, and she met me, and then I started telling her about Ali.
Yeah.
And then she said, I want to do something with Ali. And then I introduced her to the children and Jim Brown and Tom Jones and all. Yeah. But I just hope everything works great for her, because down deep and all, she's a great person. And like they say, it's not the size of the person, it's the size of the fight in the person.
Yeah.
You know, she's just a little person.
Yeah.
She put her teeth in this thing and she made it happen.
Yeah,
and she deserves all the credit.
That's what she said to me when I had the interview. She said, you wouldn't expect a little girl from London like me to be covering a documentary about probably the greatest fighter to have ever lived. It was
now
amazing.
She's feeling her oats.
Yeah. So it was fantastic for that. I said, I hope that it gets the recognition as well that it deserves.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, when I was watching it, just the raw, like how raw it was. If you're listening to audio, and people might think that would put them off watching a movie because you're just listening to audio, but it was directed so well, and the way you could listen to.
There was a lot of continuity in it.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
there was great continuity.
It's something that I just don't think you can get anywhere else from any documentary I've ever seen.
No,
just watching it, it was just.
It's one of the best. You know, they had When We Were Kings, and the guy came over and he was on the outer circle of us. He shot himself, and it's hung in his house, and then he won Academy Award. But this is the real stuff.
Yeah.
This is the nuts and bolts of it. And
absolutely.
I'm sure, you know, if they want to be fair and do things right, I'm sure it's going to get the Academy Award as the greatest documentary of the year.
Fantastic. Gene Kilroy, thank you so much for joining us here on TYT Sports. And
Play golf?
Thank you. I do sometimes. Not very good.
He would always tell me time is going to fly. He could foresee things and knew how important those things would be.
It was unbelievable, the power that this man had. And the little boy said, I got leukemia. And Ali said, I remember I told you that you are going to beat cancer and I'm going to beat George Foreman. And the little boy said, no, Muhammad, I'm going to meet God. And I'm going to tell him that I know you.
George Foreman, how you doing?
He whispered in my ear, "That all you got, George?" And that was about all I had.
This is a microphone, and when you get to be a big girl, I'm gonna play this back so you can hear.
What was your initial reaction when you first seen the final product of the documentary?
I wasn't surprised because I already knew that it was going to be brilliant. I saw a 30-minute audio clip and video clip of which he had done and was already just immensely impressed. So when I saw the film, I thought, wow, what a beautiful, beautiful portrait of my father that has never been done before.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing, as I spoke to Claire about, was just how raw the recordings are. Like, I know that you said, were you aware that your father was taking these recordings throughout your childhood? Did you know about them as much? Did you see them in a different light once they came out in the documentary?
Yeah, we knew about them. I mean, he started recording us when we were 3 years old, Layla and me, at home, and the recordings were always there in our face. So then they weren't presented until I was 20 years old. And I hadn't actually heard any of them, but he would actually play them back for us when we were 3 and 4 and 5, so we can hear them after he actually recorded us then. And I learned that listening to them now.
People just feel the love that emanates from him, and people can feel that.
You look beautiful.
I know my mother, she looked at him and she hugged him and then she started to cry and she left the room. She said, well, I looked into his eyes and I saw God.
As your father, do you think that this is a great thing that portrayed in this documentary is portraying him away from the light of like a flow like a butterflies thing, like a bee there? That this is portraying him in the family light that is so amazing to see, I think, from me as a viewer.
Yeah, I think Claire did a good job of balancing it all out. You know, she shows the fights in London, his strategy. She shows the social activist. She shows the new Muslim man who's declaring his name, and the father. And that's why the movie is so brilliant, because it's a balance, but it's a balance really exuding the spirit and why he's the way he is, not just the facts. I mean, there are things in the film I never knew about. I didn't know the story behind the Esquire magazine cover. I'm the child. I didn't know that story.
Neither did I.
So I mean, she dug something up that I didn't know about.
Yeah, we 99% of all that we had never seen before. Even the clips and footage she chose.
No, I disagree. I've seen the majority of that footage.
Well, I had not. And I've seen everything on my dad. So I was surprised.
I've seen a lot of it.
Everything.
That's the thing that I think the
presented differently.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It was presented differently.
It's the thing that it presents you, as Claire said. It's like we're sitting watching a whole movie, and you're sitting there, and everyone's watching the same thing. It's like the integrated version of Muhammad Ali that you don't see as much in the media. And I was just captivated by how you can use audio recordings as something that, like, people might be put off a little bit when you think about that in terms of movie, like, oh, well, you're not going to see the actual like footage, but I was just engrossed by it. Do you think that's what makes it so special?
I would like Claire to answer that.
Well, for me, when Hannah would send me these tapes, I think I said to you before, it was like a little window into somebody's life, and it was amazingly, but very raw. I felt, wow, I can hear even just. When I tuned into his voice, I could pick up when he was feeling a bit sad or a bit vulnerable or very loving. But consistently, you feel the love in his voice. It's amazing. But then I had the challenge had to put that on a screen because it actually is audio. So what do you show? And I know some people say, why don't you show pictures of the children or something? I said, in a way, it's more powerful just to hear it. So I devised these. With a graphic designer, these sound waves, so they almost felt they were alive, and they actually modulate his voice tone. So you feel there's a sort of another bit of life in the film, and it's not just a flat.
Muhammad Ali.
You kind of took more notice to issues that are still present today, and considering with discrimination, issues like that, and Muhammad Ali would always stand up for this. Do you think that's a great message for the movie, that can actually reiterate the problems that we still have today?
Yes, I mean, a lot of the problems we have today are the problems of yesteryear. They look a little differently. You know, there are more freedoms now, but you still have things that are discriminatory. So, I mean, people are going to pull what they want to pull from this film. That's why I love it so much. Some people are going to look at the family dynamic and say, wow, I want to talk to my kids more. Other people will say, wow, you know, he was an activist. I want to do more in my community. We're all just so different. But that's what makes the film so wonderful, because you can look at it the way you want to look at it. And that's, And
also my father, you know, came up in a time where, you know, he was watching people being hung. And, I mean, people forget how bad that was. And he managed to keep love in his heart and forgiveness in his heart. And I think they'll take that from that, too. If a man can go through that and survive that, if his spirit of who he is can stay intact and grow, and he can still spread love, not hate, that's just amazing, amazing, beautiful lesson in legacy.
You've made films in the past that cover captivating social figures like Mick Jagger, Audrey Hepburn, and Steve McQueen I've got here. What was it like to make one about Muhammad Ali in comparison to ones with the likes of those big names? There's something I can't, you know, people say, oh, you're trying to find out what's really special about him. Mm-hmm. And after making the film, I still can't put my finger on it. I just know, you know, if you look up in the sky, there's always a star that's much shinier than the others. Yeah. And he, to me, is like that. He's the shiniest star in the sky. And he's just got this special charisma. And so when I found out there were these tapes that nobody ever heard before, and Hana Ali owns these tapes, I spent about a year trying to persuade her to let me use some of them. And she used to send me over little snippets of them, tiny bits in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was such a privilege. And also I felt a bit like I was intruding, listening into these personal moments. And the more I heard him, the more I liked him.